radical Republicans feared that President Johnson would try to derail their Reconstruction Act by filling federal positions with men who, frankly, disagreed with them. So in response to this fear, radical Republicans passed the Tenure of Office Act at about the same time as they passed their Reconstruction Act. The law forbid the president from removing anyone from their position whose appointments required Senate confirmation. And in effect, this was done more or less to protect the more radical members of the cabinet, like Secretary of War Edwin Stanton, who had been appointed by Lincoln, confirmed by the Senate. Johnson vetoed the bill on the grounds that he deemed it unconstitutional, but his veto was overridden by the supermajority in Congress. Now, Congress launched their first impeachment proceedings against President Johnson in spring of 1867 when he tried to sabotage the enforcement of the Reconstruction Act. But the fervor really died down over the summer when Congress broke for recess. Johnson took advantage of the lull to demand the resignation of Stanton, and when Stanton refused, he was simply suspended from his post. Ulysses S. Grant was asked to fill in as acting Secretary of War until the issue could be resolved. And even Grant came under fire with the president when he questioned his orders to remove General Philip Sheridan. And Sheridan had directly served under Grant towards the end of the war. Grant was asked to remove him from his post in Texas for not exactly doing what the president wanted, and Grant really struggled with this. Johnson understood that if he couldn't remove his own cabinet officers or reassign generals, his power as an executive would be diminished because he'd be beholden to the legislative branch. So it seems like there is indeed a constitutional crisis. When the Republicans returned to Congress in November, they immediately set to work to try and impeach and remove the president. Because remember, impeachment means you are accused and convicted of a crime, then there's the trial to remove. The first attempt in the House actually failed because a majority felt that he hadn't committed the high crimes and misdemeanors that the Constitution required. Instead of attempting to patch things up with Congress, Johnson remained firm on his right to remove Stanton, based on the principle that the Tenure of Office Act had been illegal all along. So the stage is truly set for this true showdown. Andrew Johnson is the first president that was formally impeached, and the House of Representatives does so in the winter of 1868. The 9 articles of impeachment that the House approved mainly focused on his high crimes and misdemeanors, but the main charge was that Johnson had failed to fulfill his executive oath to ensure that the laws be faithfully executed, mainly the Tenure of Office Act. Now, the House voted 126 to 47 to impeach, and many House Republicans felt that even the mere threat of removal would compel Johnson to resign. However, Johnson benefited from the reality that the Republicans in the Senate just weren't as unified as Republicans in the House. Additionally, Benjamin Wade of Ohio, who had helped author the Wade-Davis bill, was president pro tempore of the Senate, and he would succeed Johnson if the Senate voted to remove him from office. Wade had made many enemies in the Senate, and there were people who simply didn't want to see him become the president. Now, the trial began in early March, lasted until mid-May of 1868, so we're talking about 11 total weeks. Chief Justice Salmon P. Chase, the former Treasury Secretary who had been appointed by Lincoln, presided over the trial. The House sent radical Republican Thaddeus Stevens and several others to help with the prosecutors, while a New York lawyer who didn't particularly care for Johnson but thought he deserved a competent lawyer defended the president. As the jury, the Senate did have a few things to iron out, such as the issue of what defined high crimes and misdemeanors, whether it was smarter to convict Johnson or vote him out of office in 6 months, or whether or not impeachment was even considered a useful tool in a democracy. There were 7 Republicans who were convinced to cross the aisle and vote for acquittal, which gave a total of 35 to convict and 19 to acquit. This was one short of the 2/3 majority necessary to remove Johnson from in office. So he remained president, but his presidency and legitimacy were much diminished. So he's simply going to serve out the remainder of Lincoln's second term.